We live in a world that's always on, always running at full speed, right? But what if you could completely change how you deal with all that pressure? Well, today, we're jumping into the big ideas from the book Unstressable, and there's a huge promise in it. You really don't have to live in a constant state of stress.
Does any of this sound familiar? You know, that feeling of being just perpetually overwhelmed, always thinking, always worrying, with a nervous system that just refuses to power down? If you're nodding your head right now, trust me, you are not alone. This is pretty much the shared experience of modern life for so many of us.
All right, so here it is. This is the absolute game-changing idea from the book. What if the huge majority of our stress, like 75 to 80% of it, isn't actually coming from the outside world? What if it's coming from our own internal reactions? Because if we're the ones creating it, well, that means we've also got the power to turn it off.
Okay, let's get into it. First, we'll talk about what unstressable really means. Then we're going to break stress down into 4 specific sources. We'll look at how it wears us out, cover a simple biological rule that changes everything, and finally, lay out a real practical path to get you more resilient.
So look, the goal here isn't some fantasy where you have zero problems. I mean, come on, that's not life. The promise of becoming unstressable is all about building up an inner strength, a kind of mental armor, so that when stress does show up, and it will, you can handle it, fast, without letting it completely derail you. You know how hard it is to fight an enemy you can't see? Stress often feels like that, this big, invisible monster. Well, the source material gives us a framework to stop doing that. It's called the TONN model, and it's basically a tool that helps us put a name and a face to whatever's actually causing all that pressure.
So TONN is an acronym. It stands for trauma, obsessions, nonsense, and noise. Each one is a totally different kind of stressor, and just being able to tell them apart is, honestly, the first huge step toward getting back in the driver's seat.
First up, we've got T for trauma. Now these are the big ones, the life-altering, earth-shattering events. And while they are, of course, incredibly severe, the book makes a really surprising point here. It turns out we humans are amazingly resilient. The data actually shows that most people bounce back pretty quickly, and a lot of them even experience something called post-traumatic growth, where they come out of it even stronger.
Okay, next is O for obsessions. And the book points to this as one of the most dangerous kinds of stress, simply because it's 100% internal. See, it's not the single negative thought that's so bad. It's the fact that we hit replay on that thought over and over and over again in our heads. That's what keeps our bodies in a constant state of fight or flight.
Then there's N for nonsense. Think of this as stress by 1,000 cuts. It's your alarm clock blaring, the constant pings from your phone, getting stuck in traffic. Get this, the book says the average person deals with something like 15 to 18 of these little annoyances before they even leave the house in the morning. On their own, they're nothing, but when they stack up, they're completely exhausting.
And the last source is that second N, noise. These are those quiet, critical whispers in the back of your mind. They're not as loud as obsessions, but they create this low-level hum of anxiety all day long. So here's the big takeaway from all this. Obsessions, nonsense, and noise. 3 out of the 4 sources are either totally internal or things we can directly control. That's where all our power is. All right, so we've named the sources. Now let's talk about the real-world impact. Because chronic stress isn't just some idea in our heads. It leaves a very real mark on every single part of our being, and it does so across 4 key areas.
First up, mental exhaustion. You know that feeling when your brain is like a runaway train you just can't stop? You're constantly replaying stuff that happened, worrying about what's next, and you just can't focus. It leaves you feeling totally scattered and, well, exhausted.
Then that leads to emotional exhaustion. This is when you're living on edge, you know? The smallest little thing can trigger you or make you irritable, and it drives us to find an escape, whether it's binge watching a show, scrolling endlessly on social media, or just burying ourselves in work. Anything to not feel what we're feeling.
Third, and honestly, this one is pretty alarming, is physical exhaustion. The body doesn't lie. The source points out a truly staggering statistic. More than 70% of all doctor's visits are linked back to chronic stress. We're talking about headaches, digestive issues, skin problems, all the way up to really serious long-term conditions like heart disease. Stress is literally making us sick.
And finally, there's spiritual exhaustion. This one's a bit deeper. It's that feeling of being disconnected from who you really are outside of all your roles, your job title, being a mom or a dad, all your responsibilities. It's that empty feeling of being stuck on a hamster wheel, even if you look super successful on the outside.
Okay, so after all that, we get to what might be the single most powerful, most hopeful idea in the whole book. It's a dead simple biological fact that can completely change how you manage stress, right in the moment it's happening.
So let me just ask you this. When something stressful happens, you get a nasty email, you have a tense conversation, how long do you think that physical reaction, that flood of chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline, actually lasts in your body? A few minutes? An hour?
The answer is 90 seconds. That's it, just a minute and a half. Biologically speaking, that whole chemical cascade that makes you feel stressed is designed to be processed and flushed out of your system completely. After 90 seconds, the physical event is officially over.
And this right here illustrates the whole problem, doesn't it? The body's response is short. It does its job, and it's done. But what do? We start replaying it in our heads. We think about what we should have said, we worry about what happens next. And every time we do that, we are consciously choosing to restart that 90-second clock. That's the mental loop that turns a fleeting moment into chronic, long-term stress. This quote from the book just says it all perfectly. The stressor itself is just the trigger. The real suffering, the exhaustion, comes from our choice to keep judging it, to keep reliving it, and to keep letting it live rent-free in our heads long after those 90 seconds are up.
So, if that's the problem, what's the solution? Let's get into the practical tools. I mean, knowing about the 90-second rule is great, but how do we actually put that into practice and start taking back our calm?
The book suggests this really simple but really powerful exercise called the weekly stress audit. It's easy. Once a week, you take 15 minutes and you write down everything that stressed you out, especially all that nonsense stuff. Then you just go down the list and ask, can I get rid of this? Can I change it? Or can I change how I react to it? The key is to start small. Just fix 3 tiny things each week. Mute that annoying group chat. Change your horrible alarm sound. Over time, those little changes add up to a massive amount of peace.
And that really brings us full circle, back to the main idea. This is not about trying to create a perfect life with no challenges. It's about building up that inner strength, that awareness, so you know deep down that no matter what life decides to throw at you, you've got the tools to handle it, and it's not going to break you.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final, really powerful question from the source material. You get about 4 billion heartbeats in your lifetime. That's it. How many of those are you willing to spend on a frustrating notification, on a negative thought you keep replaying, or on a worry that you can't control? The choice, as we've seen today, really is up to you.